Welcome to the number 3 podcast in Austria.
That's right. Number 3 in the performing arts category in Austria.
According to some metric.
I think that's pretty electric.
No one in America is listening to it.
No, but the Austrians are eating it up.
All right. Hi, Carson.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Will. Hey. Hello, audience listening at home. And hello, believe it or not, to the people who are sitting here with us in this studio. Say hi, everyone. Hi. Did you all hear that at home?
That was not AI.
That was not AI. Those are actual people. We invited some of our former students. Well, my former students, not your former students.
No. I couldn't teach my way out of a paper bag.
Well, we'll find a paper bag you can teach. I wanted today to be interactive a little bit. I thought it would be a good topic today to have actors in the room to discuss. It turns out that we've trained quite a few actors who are out there doing their job, which is exciting. So we wanted to talk about, today's topic is the attributes, the characteristics that are important for an actor to have. I think an actor can't be successful unless they have these attributes, and we will talk about that with this handful of wonderful actors that we have in the room with us. But before that, we'll listen to our funky intro.
Yeah.
That Jean-Louis Trulès did for us. So this funky music that you're listening to right now, we'll come back after this music. It should not be acting training, it should be actor training.
Am I a good actor?
Like me doing... It's not a Meisner podcast.
There it is.
All right, great. Look at that. Did you enjoy Jean-Louis' music?
Did everyone enjoy Jean-Louis' music?
I sure did.
We're back from our funky intro. So, I've said this enough times that I used to teach for years at a conservatory. But the thing about it is, it's called Mason Gross School of the Arts. It's a small school. It's a conservatory, but it's in a university. Rutgers University is a major American university, but the program that we worked in was small. And our students didn't always get to be, real American college students. They had to have a little more discipline than that. Most college students will plan their week. They'll choose their own classes and plan their week to go from Monday to Thursday so that Thursday night starts the weekend, And they'll party on Thursday night and then party on Friday night and then party on Saturday night. Our guys only partied on Saturday night. Camila's looking at me like, no, we did more partying. But the truth is, our students, I think, had a little bit more discipline than that. But they had to. A lot was asked of them. They would work from like 8:30 in the morning till 6, take a dinner break, come back, rehearse from 7 till 11, and then go home and do their homework. So that really asks a lot. And the reason I bring that up is because most people think that actors are frivolous and shallow human beings. There's a kind of an ancient reputation for that. It's why Stanislavski developed his system. He looked around at the actors in Russia at the time that he was working, and he found them to only care about how they looked on stage. They would hold their faces a certain way or whatever so that they look good, but say the lines in a certain way. But they weren't doing anything that found their way into the play and to help to have the audience live through a story, So they were, in fact, self-centered. And then in this country, of course, there's Hollywood, ancient Hollywood, where people got cast because of the way they looked. And the acting was very, very empty. It was considered good acting if you could just, say a line in a certain kind of line reading, It's not until recently that actors are expected to be, broad individuals with many interests, So the truth is, though, we believe that actors have to know a little bit about everything that everybody else knows. Actually more than a little bit. Actors really kind of have to know a lot about what everybody else knows, because otherwise how are you going to play a character who truthfully is living through something if you don't yourself have some understanding of it? So actors, they know about philosophy, and they know about psychology and history and comparative religion and all this stuff. They have to know a lot of stuff. So I remember years ago, I think it was literally the first class that I ever taught. A guy told me that he went to one of these Rutgers parties with, regular people there. And he was talking to some woman, and he said, what's your major? And she said, bio. And he was like, good. And she said, what's your major? And he said, acting. I'm at the conservatory. And she was just so patronizing. She was like, oh, isn't that great? Good for you, acting. You don't have to do anything. You just play all day and you memorize lines that other people wrote for you. You don't really have to. What a great major. He said to her, listen, man, if I worked really hard, I could do your major. I wouldn't be great at it, but I could do your major if I really worked at it. And then he said to her, in a million fucking years, you could never do what I do. I don't think he got laid that night. Right? So he's saying that he had the discipline, and he also had the brain power to sort of buckle down and learn bio. He's not going to become a biologist, but he could do it. But it takes a certain talent. Listen, here's the thing about acting. Let's say there are three spheres of the individual, right? The sphere of the intellect, which is the brain, the sphere of the body, right? Physical, to have a strong and flexible body, and the sphere of the spiritual, the heart and the soul. You have to have all three of those things working. The average person walking the streets, they're lucky if they have one of those things, right? And actors have to have all three. And that's before you get the job. That's when you go to audition. That's not even when you have the job. Once you have the job, you really have to begin the process of doing the job. You have to open your heart and have a you have to have thin skin, You have to take your skin off, as we sometimes say. Right? Diane Wiest once came to speak to the students at Rutgers, and she said to them, you have to take your skin off, and you could feel a shudder going through the room. Everyone was like, always? Yes, I know, but always? She was like, yeah, if you're going to go out on stage, that's 8 times a week. It's hard to do. So what I wanted to do with our group here today, our wonderfully handsome group of people, except for, you know who you are. One of you, not so handsome. You know who you are. We won't say. But the rest of you are very good looking. What I wanted to do is have the group speak just sort of extempore on this topic. Like, what I really want you all to do is to answer this question. Let's make a list. What do you think are some important attributes, characteristics for an actor to have in order to be successful? Will that mic pick them up, do you think? If they speak? Thank you. Thank you, Will. So just, call it out. Humility. That's a good.
Agility.
Agility. That's a good one.
Adaptability.
Adaptability.
Self-belief.
Self-belief.
Empathy.
Empathy.
Discipline.
Discipline.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Discernment.
Discernment.
I don't know so much. Lack of expectations.
Lack of expectation. You can't want something so much that you shut down the possibilities. Yeah, that's a hard thing to do. Let's talk about that. Let's take that apart a little bit, if you remind me, Carson. Anything else?
Trust.
Trust.
Like hardiness.
Hardiness, like you got to have fortitude.
Yeah.
Fortitude.
A good body.
You have to have a really strong and flexible body. It's true, especially for stage acting. My God, it takes it out of you.
A good sense of play.
A sense of play, a childlike sense of wonder and a sense of play, with no self-consciousness. Right? Most people, if they play as adults, they feel silly. You know, they feel self-conscious about it. Anything else?
Awareness.
Awareness.
You have to be a good investigator.
You have to be curious. You have to be a good investigator. You have to see something and go down that rabbit hole, and not stop where most people go, that's good enough. But the actor has it in them to be like, I feel like there's more. And the deeper you dig, you'll find that thing that somebody else may have missed because they quit.
I think you'll have to be able to translate, right? Like take an idea from one group of people or something and be able to say, I know how to make this accessible to someone else who wouldn't otherwise get it.
That's really important. How to translate something that means something to another group, and it has to somehow filter through you and translate to another group of people who maybe would not have. You're the middle person between that. It's really important.
You have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself, which everybody thinks they do, but nobody does. Everybody thinks they know themselves, and then they stop investigating. But we said this in the very first episode. People know the version of themselves that makes them feel comfortable. So they stop there, and then they spend the rest of their lives projecting that image that they want everybody to think they are, but they don't really know themselves.
So I guess in some ways to unknow yourself.
And then to unknow yourself, right? Because sometimes I would say that I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to help you unlearn, right? I'm not going to teach you anything. I can't teach you anything. The environment, if you choose to learn from the environment, it'll teach you. And if it chooses to teach you, you will. But nobody could teach anybody anything. Like I could tell you something, that doesn't mean you learned it, We had that discussion, right, about you don't know what hot is unless you touch something hot.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you go, I really have to touch something hot? Well, at the very least, if you're cooking bacon and it spits up at you a little bit, you get a little bit of bacon grease on you, that's hot. But only for a little bit. And then you go, that's all I need. As an actor, you go, I got it.
Whether you have to know what truth actually looks like.
What truth actually looks like.
Like a sense of groundedness? Is that what
Yeah,
you mean?
and I mean that, and like what you're saying of like, truth isn't always like makes you feel good, like, but also like, in acting, it's like when people get mad, sometimes they get really quiet. They don't start yelling.
To try it.
Like that, there's multiple different.
Yeah, so a sense of truth and how it filters. Because you might be feeling something, but your life experience has taught you to shut it down. And so you're not in touch with it. It's been said that Miser invented the repetition exercise because he thought that Americans were not in touch with their anger. Now, this is in the 30s, right? Today, everybody walks around angry. But I think Americans are still not in touch with their anger, not really. Like road rage, that's not really anger. Not really. Not deep anger where you understand where it lives in you and why it lives in you. That's just flying off the handle, right? That's different. But Ryan, you said a sense of grounded, like you have to be grounded.
Yeah. I think also a good listener.
I have to be a good listener, which nobody is in real life.
You have to be a good lover. You have to know what it means to love.
Yeah. You have to know what it means to love. That's another thing people avoid, or they think they know it. They think they know it. Also, well, this is down the line for us, but everyone in this room knows what we're talking about. Part of the Miser technique is crafting activities, right? You craft something that you do, and you identify a circumstance that happened and how you feel about it. And then the activity connects you to that experience and facilitates it, right? But how many times do you do an activity and 2 seconds in you go, this doesn't mean to me what I thought it did. So then you're just full of shit up there. You're like, I crafted the shit out of this, but I only just now realized this doesn't mean what I thought it meant. And love falls under that category, and that because we're all so afraid. We're afraid to say out loud. Like you might go, I'm doing this activity for my niece because blah, 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 and I really love it. And then nothing's happening to you. And you're like, turns out I really think that kid's a little brat. And I don't love her the way I thought I did. I love her because she's my niece, but not in the way that I set up, right? So an actor really has to sit with themselves and say, well, what do I love and how do I love it? And what does it mean to me to love that thing, By the way, this is a bit of a tangent, but not really. We've talked about this. Everybody in this room knows. Directors will use the term stakes. They go, what's at stake? It's a terrible, terrible term that directors use. It doesn't mean anything to actors. Hey, raise the stakes. You go, okay, what the fuck? What? Raise the stakes. That's good for directors. But actors, it means deepen the meaning or pin down the meaning. And so it turns out that what that really has to do with is what do you stand to gain or what do you stand to lose? I had a playwright teacher tell me that. It wasn't even an acting teacher. A playwriting teacher said to me, you got to help the actors to identify what they might lose or what they might gain. That's where love comes in. Like if you lose love, that's a big deal. Those are high stakes.
I think, I don't know if the articulate version or the eloquent version is fearlessness or something, but I think there needs to be a good understanding of what scares you.
Yeah.
Because, right, like you have to, without knowing what fears you have, it's difficult to behave in line with those fears.
Well, and there's also in case the audience didn't hear, Matisse just brought up fear. There's really two ways of looking at it. One, you have to know what scares you, what truly scares you, so that you might identify it and live it through and play it. But you also have to be you have to be bold as an actor. You have to be quote unquote fearless as an actor. Can you truly be fearless? I don't know. But in order to act, to take your skin off, you really have to be bold and brave and fearless. But at the same time, you have to identify what you're afraid of so that you can play it.
I actually don't even know that it's fearless so much as I think that, I can't remember if it's courage or bravery, but the definition I think of bravery is to act in spite of the fear you have.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important because if you are actually fearless, nothing is penetrating.
Yeah. There's really no such thing as fearless, so it means you don't have fear.
Or confidence. Nobody knows if confidence is real.
Yeah, is confidence real? Well, I mean, that definition of bravery is like it scares the shit out of you, but you do it anyway, right? It's like, we've talked about this too. Actors are the people that run toward experience. Most people avoid experience. That's why your phone has become as important to you as it has. Everyone in America, I'll speak for America, their phone is next to them so they can avoid any and all experience. Yeah. You're feeling something, you go, I'll just grab my phone and distract myself.
Or awkward silences, feel like with that.
Awkward silence.
I had a great clown teacher who broke down, I think I've told you this, Kevin, but he broke down the root word that is experience, from the Latin, and he compared it to that of explain and experience, and X is through, and plane is the flat, so it's through nothing. You don't have to do anything to explain it. But to experience something, X is through, and peri is death, peril. So it's through death. Like you got through the possibility of death. And that really blew my mind with what an experience should be.
Well, through peril.
You should nearly die.
Yeah, in order to live, you have to die. Wait, what? Well, that's a whole other tangent, isn't it? We've talked about this in my classes before. Whenever we think that we're better than animals, really the only thing we have that animals don't is that we know we're going to die. And they don't. Well, they do understand fear, though. They do have fear. They have fight or flight, right? But I don't think you don't see, cut to a dog funeral. All dogs are sitting around. He was a good German Shepherd, but they don't know. So we do know though. So what does it do? It makes us cautious. Mm-hmm. We spend our lives going, I'm going to avoid the inevitable end of what I know my life is, So, but that fearless, that's really interesting. Actors, when a building is on fire, everybody's running away from it. But on your way out, you pass people running toward it. Firefighters, they're running toward the fire, And actors run toward experience. But why? So that the people who don't run toward experience can have the vicarious experience that they're avoiding. They get to sit in a room and live it out. Well, Spencer said empathy, right? You live it out through empathy, right? Anything else? This is a hell of a list. Go ahead, Rory.
I don't know about animals if they have a perception of the future and what this happens A to B to C. So I think as an actor you have to be so present in the moment that you're not anticipating or knowing what A to B to C and what could happen.
Yeah, if you're in A, you don't know that there is a B, much less what B is. You have to be able to live in the present moment. Animals live in the present moment. Unfortunately, they can also learn a habit that we teach them. Like my dog, when I would throw the ball and then pretend to throw the ball, she would start running. And I didn't throw it. It meant she got in the habit that the ball is going to be thrown. But usually they're so in the present moment, We can learn a lot from the way animals just go through their life behaving. Okay. So once again, right, actors are really shallow people. That's a hell of a list. And every actor has to have all of those things. They have to be sort of expert at all of those things. Now, there are three things we didn't say, but everybody in this room knows what they are because it's part of a lesson that I do teach when I'm teaching a conventional class. The three things that we think actors have to have, or else that list we just made means nothing unless they have these three things. They all start with the letter C. You guys want to just say them?
Concentration. Commitment. Collaboration.
It's a good thing that one of the words wasn't forcefulness, because they were all like, yes. Well, the irony is that the main one is commitment, but none of you committed to say it. Commitment, really important attribute for an actor to have. Concentration, and either collaboration or cooperation. I think they're kind of the same thing, right? So let's go through those. Here's the other thing. Maybe the people in this room remember this, that every time I tell myself these three C's, I always change my mind about which one's most important. I wake up and I go, today, concentration is the one. Then I go, no, it's commitment. No, it's not. Because I always go, well, if you can't concentrate, who gives a shit about anything else? Like if you can't stay with something for more than 30 seconds, who cares? People show up, I'm a brilliant actor for 30 seconds. It's like, well, that doesn't really help. But then commitment, I feel the same way. I'm a brilliant actor, but you don't commit to anything. You never show up, or when you show up, you're not really there. You're on your phone or whatever. You don't commit. And then collaboration, I go, well, who cares how great you are? You don't know how to work with other people. And let's face it, theater is a collaborative art form, And if you go, well, what about a one-person show? Okay, there's a stage manager, there's a lighting designer, there are technicians, there's the producer, the person who wrote it, maybe. If you didn't write it, you're collaborating, right? All right. So let's take those apart. Commitment. We have a quote that's attributed to Goethe, but I don't think it is from Goethe. I think it's actually an amalgam. I think it's two separate quotes squished together, and somebody a while ago said, this is Goethe, but I don't think it is. But the truth is, who cares? It's a great quote, and Carson's going to read it right now.
All right. It's my big moment. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth that ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do, or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
I will, Goethe. Thank you. I will begin it now.
You know, that's not a great quote.
Yeah, we find this in our work. Again, this is about the 400th time I've mentioned that Carson and Will and I are in a company called the 1-1 Project. Some of the people in our little audience here today are also in the project. And that notion of providence comes up quite a bit. Like if you fully commit and let go and don't even look for help, if you commit, providence, being that thing outside of yourself, what Duza called grace in the last session, it will step in and help you. Like the craziest things will happen. The most extraordinary things will happen that never would have happened if you didn't commit. Because as it says in that first line, until you commit, if there's any kinds of hesitancy, you can fall back. You can take a step back. And you can also have that self-fulfilling prophecy where you go, well, it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work because you didn't commit. You did it to yourself. So people say they know what commitment means, but I don't think they do. I don't think people really know what commitment is. We have a great exercise which makes no sense because this is audio. And this is visual, but maybe we'll do it anyway and I'll explain to the folks at home what's going on. Let's do that exercise. Everybody raise your right hand in the air. Okay? So what I'm looking at is everybody has raised their right hand. A few people have raised it in a angle. Is that a 95-degree angle? It goes out and then up?
I'm not good at math.
Oh, you're not?
No.
But at home, you all can picture what I'm talking about, like the letter L, right? So when I say raise your right hand, some people raise it like the letter L. They put their arm out, but at their elbow out, and then their forearm up. But if I say again, raise your right hand, so what I'm looking at now, I have to describe to you all, is that everybody raised their hand a little bit more, which means there's more hand to raise. So if I go raise your right hand, right, you people listening at home, you could do this as I'm speaking. Raise your right hand. Is your impulse you just kind of put it up a little and go, okay, there it is, it's up. But if you go, no, I said raise your right hand, suddenly you go, oh shit, there's actually more. I have more capacity to raise my hand. It goes even further than I thought, which meant when I first raised my hand, I kind of did it half-assed. I didn't commit to raising my hand. So then if I say, well, raise your right hand, and you raise it more, you realize that means almost anything I do, there's more capacity for it than my instinct is. But here's the real thing, the real end of this exercise, right? And I will describe what's happening. Everybody raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Aha! What's happening is that people are stretching, and now they're all standing up. Thank you.
Kevin, you're not defeating the cult allegations.
I often say that I missed my calling. I should have been a cult leader because people do whatever I say.
They raise their right hand.
Everyone raise your right hand. I will raise my right hand. Sorry. Yeah, it's a fine line between acting training and a cult. We try not to cross it. But here's what happened for the folks at home. When these actors in this room who are committed raised their right hand, when they ran out of capacity for raising their hand, their body started to go with it as much as it could in the seat they're sitting in. And then when I was like, come on, you guys, raise your right hand, they stood up. So what are we saying? We're saying that every action that you do is not over until there is no more of that action. And then the way to look at that, and this is a little script analysis, the way to look at it is every action you do, the beginning of every action, it comes from the end of the previous action. We don't do that. We tend not to do that. We kind of half-ass our way through life. We get by with the least amount that we could do. But you think about this, when you're acting, very often, when I'm directing actors, they'll do a thing, right? I'll say, why did you do that? And they'll say, because it says so in the script. That's what happens next in the script. You can't do the thing because the script tells you to do it. You, as the actor, have to find the reason I did that was because I ran out of the previous thing. I stood up because I ran out of arm, and it made me stand up, okay? It's a strange exercise to do on audio because you can't see that at home, but hopefully everybody listening has an imagination. So you could all picture what that looked like, right? And I'm not kidding. Do it for yourself at home, right? Unless you're driving in the car right now. Don't do it. Don't do it on the subway either. People will think you're weird. But if you get a chance and you're just sitting at home, try it. Try almost any activity or any action and ask yourself, did I complete that action to its fullest? All right. So that's commitment. Now, why is that important? Because the director expects it of you. I've often said this too. I think I'm an anomaly in that I may be one of the rare acting teachers who's a director. I'm not an actor. So when an actor teaches acting, they ask for certain things from their students. But I'm a director teaching actors, so I'm kind of training you for the direct. I'm training you to go work with a director. Directors really want to see commitment because our job is to shape what you do. How can I shape it if you don't fully bring it? I don't want to shape your half-assed thing. Okay. Anybody want to feedback on any of that we've talked about? Commitment, etc. I'm looking at a bunch of blank faces.
They look really enthused.
They look very intense, actually. They're shaking their head no. Most of them are going, I want out of this cult. How do I get out? Concentration. Let's talk a little bit about concentration. Now, this is really important. I want to make sure everybody recognizes that the only reason we use the word concentration is so that we understand what investment is. When we say concentrate, we really mean invest in something. Because to concentrate on something is a kind of a me thing, right? If you go, I am concentrating, that makes it about you. But if you're acknowledging something, right? If you're putting yourself in the environment of that thing and letting it be important to you, I would rather have that than concentrating. To me is a little bit of sending energy out, right? Whereas acknowledging something or receiving something, that to me is what we're really talking about. But concentration in and of itself, the reason it's important again is because this generation with cell phones and computers in general, we get distracted pretty easily. And again, the people in this room know that I go off in this rant quite a bit. Young people say that they're doing 2, 3, or 4 things at the same time. What do you guys call that? Multitasking. To which we say, you're not doing any one of those things. You go, I'm doing 5 things. No, you're not doing any one of those things. You're not doing 5 things at the same time. How about do one thing, right? So when you do 5 things at the same time, you're not doing any one thing. So what happens is we diffuse our ability to concentrate gets diffused, right? It gets mushy. So, I would love it if the people listening gave themselves every day one thing to give themselves one thing to sort of focus on and let it happen to them and let it acknowledge its presence, and make it more important than you, right? So for everybody at home, you could do this right now. Everybody in this room knows it. This is an exercise that comes from Stanislavski. It's called the circle of attention, right? Sometimes translated as the circle of concentration, but there's that word, concentration. I like the translation, the circle of attention. What you do is you put an imaginary circle around yourself and anything else you want to be in that circle with you, right? So those of you at home right now, you could just do this right now. Put an imaginary circle around yourself and, wherever you're sitting. the thing about it is because it's imaginary, it's flexible. You can open it up or close it. So if you go, I'm going to make the imaginary circle this entire room I'm sitting in, well, does that mean that you're going to put your attention on everything that's in that room? That's a lot. You're not going to be able to put 100% of your attention. Things will get a little fuzzy on you. But if you, in your understanding of this imaginary exercise, if you close that circle, you'll feel things around you get more and more vibrant. And the fun thing about that always is when you start to close that circle and you look at something, like I'm looking at a bottle of water, I'll be like, that bottle of water's been there this entire time. But not until I close the circle around it do I go, man, that's a red. Jesus, that red is very red. And there's a mountain drawing on it, which I never saw. I just took it for granted because I want to drink from a bottle. I'm not looking at the bottle. But when I put my attention on it, I go, wow, there's a mountain drawing and there's whatever, right? So imagine if you do that with your acting partner. If you close in the circle so it's just you and your partner, they're going to happen to you. You're going to take them in a much more rich way, okay? And then the third thing is collaboration. I promise you can't do this work without collaborating. How many of you in this room, you don't have to out anybody, but how many of you had experience where you worked with somebody who was not collaborative and it was a fucking disaster? Everybody's like, yeesh. It's a disaster. Speaking of fear, by the way, your non-collaborative partner is afraid. So it's not a bad idea to ask yourself, what are they afraid of? And maybe you can not address it with them directly because they may get upset with you that you called them out on being afraid. But if you know what they're afraid of, you might be able to work around it. It's the director's job. That's my job as a director. If I see somebody defended or if I see somebody pull back from collaborating, I may take them out to dinner. Hey, you want to go to dinner? Yeah, let's have a meal. What are you afraid of? Well, I have you alone. What's the matter, Will? Why'd you make that? Did I take you out to dinner once or twice? Is that what? No. What, Will?
No, you never took me.
I never took Will out to dinner. That's because you worked well. I didn't have to ask you what your fucking problem is.
You've taken me out to dinner a lot.
Sometimes dinner is just dinner. But for a director, sometimes it's like, I got you alone. What's up? Right. Very fragile being an actor. And actors, even though they have to reveal themselves, they don't want to be revealed. So if you find yourself working with a non-collaborative partner, they're afraid of something. And it will manifest in any number of ways, you know. Somebody just told me recently they were working with somebody who was giving them a hard time because they were younger and saying, what the hell do you know? You're younger, whatever. Oh, Christ. So that manifested in, I'm older and I've been doing this a lot, so you don't know anything that I don't know. Not always true. My examples of collaboration tend to have horrible outcomes. I don't know if anybody listening has heard of the flying Walendas. They were actually way, way before anybody listening to this was born. There was no television. And people would, for purposes of entertainment, go out to like the fair or the carnival or the circus. And there were people who were tightrope walkers, right? Or aerialists, the trapeze and all that. It was very dangerous, you know, so people would go to get a thrill out of it. Well, the Walendas were a family that the head of the family, his brother died falling off a trapeze, and the brother decided from that moment on that they were not going to have a net. So the guy fell with the net, and I must have fallen, maybe bounced wrong and fell off the net and died. So the other guy was like, we're not going to have the illusion of safety. So he took the net away. So they always worked without a net. Then to raise the stakes, this guy came up with this pyramid. There would be 4 guys walking on a tightrope, 30 or so more feet above the ground with sawdust on it. So, if you fall into the sawdust, you're okay, right? No. And then those 4 guys would have like a piece of wood from their shoulder to shoulder, and another guy would stand on that. So with 4 guys walking, there were then 2 guys standing on the wood on top of them. And then on top of those 2 guys, there was another piece of wood and a chair. And the one woman in the family, the sister or daughter or whatever, she would sit in that chair. So it was a human pyramid, 30 or 40 feet above the ground, walking on a tightrope with no net. They fell. 2 of them died. 1 of them was paralyzed. Because one guy moved slightly jerky. He just jerked slightly off. One guy, and everybody else went. So you want to talk about trust? What if you're the one sitting in the chair? You're like, I don't have any agency here. I just sit here. And I trust that the 6 people below me are all doing their job. But what was interesting about it was that the person who messed it up was new to the act, and he wasn't ready. And the other ones knew he wasn't ready. But the father, the patriarch, was like, look, man, we got to work. This is how we earn our living. So we put the guy up there, and he was the lead guy. He was the first guy. And he didn't quite have the way they did this thing was they all moved together like one unit. If one person moved, the other one would move with it. But he moved in a really jerky way, and nobody could go with it. And then once he stumbled, it just fell like a pyramid. Just boom, 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 and they all fell. So I use that as that's an extreme example, but I would want all of you in a play to go doing a play is like the Flying Melendez. We're not going to die, but we could crash. So think of those stakes, right? What's interesting is I was recently reading Al Pacino's autobiography, and he mentions that story, but for a different moral, a different purpose. He tells it as a story of bravery. He goes, acting on stage is like the Melendez. You know how brave you have to be to go up there, and and I'm like, no, it's not about bravery. It's about collaboration, I think, right?
I'll make sure Al hears that.
Will you tell Al
that you really disagree with him?
when you say it? Yeah, let's bring Al on this podcast. We'll debate it. By the way, another good book for those of you. We keep recommending books, but it's called Sonny Boy.
Sonny Boy.
Sonny Boy.
Yeah.
Al Pacino.
Great.
It's great just to hear him talk. He's the guy that doesn't want to be. He wants to walk down the street and not have people know. He's like, I just want to be an actor. I don't want to be famous. He's turned jobs down because he couldn't find his way in, right? Which is really cool. All right. So, what are we really talking about here? We're saying that was a hell of a list that the people in this room made. None of it matters. I don't care how talented you are, if there is even such a thing as talent. We're going to talk about that someday. We'll have an episode about talent. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how imaginative you are. I don't care if you have star power, whatever the fuck that is. I don't care if you're people look at you and go whoa, that's a movie star. I don't want to work with you if you can't commit or concentrate or especially collaborate. That gets to be trouble. I'm a big star. Everyone has to do what I say. I'm not coming out of my trailer unless blah, blah, blah. Yikes. The death of art. Anything about any of this with our wonderful group here?
I have a thought. I literally just yesterday was on a film set, and the idea of concentration was very present in my brain, because you got everything going around, and the director says, "Okay, we're rolling. What's that sign in the back? Hang on, can we get that sign in the back? Okay, somebody get that sign up." All of a sudden, you were ready to go, and you're like, "Okay, now we're waiting." And so there's this energy of okay, people are going to be buzzing around. PAs are maybe feeling rushed because we are running out of time, and they're kind of getting some heat on them. But I've got to stay in my friggin' zone, because God forbid they fix the sign, come back to me, and I'm frazzled.
That's right.
And I was really just in a space of just really realizing this is that circle of attention that you have to have. Of course, there's a lot going on around me, and that also makes me think about also collaboration, because at the same time, I have a director. I have to wait for the team to be ready. I have a director who started feeding me things while the camera was rolling. There were moments of silence, so he's clear to speak over it, but I'm still in it.
That's right.
I've got to be concentrated and still open to collaboration from the director who's needing something from me.
Yeah.
But I got to be in my zone and locked into. I was a phone call scene, so I was having a complete conversation in my head.
Right.
With nobody that was there. So
Yeah, and there's commitment in that too, right, Justin?
Yeah.
There's commitment in that too. You're like, I cannot bail out of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, a film set is a really great example because everybody's doing their job. And you cannot let it throw you off. But I also want actors to be good at letting it go a little bit and then coming back. Because if you try to cling to it, you may burn yourself out, you know?
Yeah, sometimes actors throw away the collaboration for the sake of committing and being concentrated.
That's right.
You throw me out. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's like, no. You have to do all of it.
You got to do all of it. And so you're ready to go. Just as you're ready to go, they go, wait, something's in the way. Go move that. You're like, but I'm ready to go. You collaboratively, you have to go like, okay, they're not ready for me yet. But if you let go of it, it probably will fizzle out. But if you try to cling to it, that might not be the best idea either. So how fluid and flexible can you be with that circle of attention, you know? But oh my God, there's always somebody, you're doing a really intimate scene and then there's somebody holding a microphone, right here. You're like, okay, they're not in my circle of attention, but you know. Anybody else?
I've been thinking about circle of attentions when it comes to like auditions too. Like really when I've been doing auditions, I've been trying to think like more about the before the audition. Like how do I feel before? What am I doing before I get in? And then, you'll see people like going over their line, they're listening to music and stuff. And so I found like a circle of attention while I'm waiting to go in. So I'm not completely out, but I'm not completely like holding on to it. So I'll just be like, okay, what are new things that I see around the room? Like just actively practicing my presence before I walk in.
That's really
like,
good.
That's been an interesting thing as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So thinking, the point of concentration is for when you act, but you're like, no, this is before I even enter the room to act. I'm out in the waiting room. I could just sit here and feed on my own, anxiety.
I'm like, no.
No. Yeah. I know what I'll do. I'll distract myself on my phone. No, I'll be more present by taking in the room and letting things happen to me. Then I would imagine that when you walk in the room, you're already sort of.
Yeah, I'm already there. I'm present.
You're already present. Yeah. Excellent. What were you going to say, Matisse?
It's a bit nitpicky, but I actually think there's a really fundamental difference between collaboration and cooperation.
Oh, cool.
Because when I hear collaboration, I think it's a collection of individuals giving their energy towards one thing. Whereas cooperation feels someone accepting that they have to give something up.
Right.
And there's always a degree of skin coming off when you do that, rather than actually putting your arm in. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If the director telling you, I need you to do this thing, you saying, fucking fine, I'll do it. That's different than like, throw away the idea I had, let's go.
Yeah.
There's a really big difference there. And I think you can meet a lot of people that cooperate, and it's never the same as someone who's actually cooperating.
Yeah, and just because you're
Absolutely.
cooperating doesn't mean that you agree with the thing. But you just did it because you don't commit because you're cooperating, but you're not committing because you don't believe in it. Whereas collaboration is like, well, I like what Matisse just said. I have a thing, but the director gave me a direction that doesn't quite line up with it. I can either merge the two, or I can just let go of my thing and take that. I'm not just doing I'm not blindly doing what I'm being told. I'm figuring out how to help the bigger thing. So that is a collaboration, whereas cooperation is just like, what do I just blindly say yes to everything, even if I don't agree with it? That's pretty good. Yes, Spencer?
I was going to talk about commitment, because when I think about commitment, it's like committing. The key fundamental thing for me is committing to the hard things, the things you don't want to do, actor especially. Like it's like what Matisse was saying about fearlessness, how it's like your bravery, the definition is like you're still feeling it, but you're going through it. And you're not committing to anything if you're committing to the things you already want to do as the actor. Like, I want to be, I want to do all the good things, so I'm going to commit myself to that. But like these days, I'm like seeing it, and I'm like, people a lot of actors don't commit themselves to like learning all the words, like being 100% word perfect, and they don't commit themselves to like reading the script more than the first time they read it. They don't commit to the nitty gritty stuff that no one wants to do and is the least amount of fun, but without that sort of sense of like I'm committing to do these hard things. That's what's like important in the commitment, is that it's like I know that it's gonna be tough, and I'm still gonna like struggle with that. It's like the most important part.
Really important point. You can't only commit to the things that you like. There are going to be things that you like, but they're hard work, and there are going to be things that you don't like, but you have to do it because it's part of the job. Recently, somebody who's been working a lot wasn't booking, and so she called me to go over some stuff, and I was hearing her speak, and I said, "Do you realize that you're speaking negative? You're judging the material. You're not booking, I think, because you go in judging the material, television or whatever." And then I just saw her, a kind of shame came. She was like, "I feel like an idiot, like guilty or shame that I would think that I somehow know better than the writer who wrote this, And then she called me because she went in for the next job and she booked it, and it was with Angela Bassett. And she goes, "I didn't judge the material. I went and did it." I'm like, "Look, even if you did judge the material, you're not going to judge Angela Bassett. Like, whatever the material is, you get to work with her, So that's true. That's every job you do. You have to look at it like, this is the opportunity I have, and I'm going to commit to all of it, not just the parts that
Right.
You're like in collaboration, you need to sometimes commit to a bad collaborative and be like, fuck, like this person's not giving me shit, but I have to adjust how I'm responding to it, no matter what. Like, I'm not going to be able to control them. Okay, I have to like commit to this is going to be whatever it's going to be.
But by the way, that speaks to what Will was saying about love.
Yeah.
You can always find something about, maybe you have a collaborator, you're like, God, as a real person, I just cannot love this guy or woman, but you have to find it. There's something about them. Or even if you have to put on them somebody they're not, so that you can find love there, because that's what leads to positive choices. I want to be with this person. I want to be in their presence, I want them to happen. They're important enough to me that they can happen to me.
Yeah.
Also, off of that, I was thinking about the other day, because about my most free experiences on film sets, and I had a realization where I was like, oh, it actually didn't matter at all what the material was. It had to do with my work, and I had this thought, like, there's no, my job is to do truthful behavior under imaginary circumstances. There's no version of that that's better. That's the product that I don't even have any control over. So, like, what? No, I'm going to be more alive for that one, but not you,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What are you going to do? Pick and choose which one you're going to be more?
Exactly.
All right. It makes me think of this thing Philip Seymour Hoffman would say to his friends a lot, because he would ask, when he directed people, he would ask a lot of them, but it wasn't, he never asked something that he wasn't doing himself, right?
Oh my God, is an actor?
And he always said the difference between being bad and good is really big, but the difference between being good and being great is not nearly as big as the difference between being bad as good, being bad and between being bad and good. So if you're going to do all the work to be good, you might as well do it to be great.
You might as well do that.
And I think that's just 100% commitment all of the time.
Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up this?
Well, we did talk about collaboration in the sense of with an audience, like on stage, which, I mean, you guys are doing all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important thing too, because like when you're having, you're doing a show for months, and each audience, you're genuinely collaborating. They're giving you different things, and so I think that's just something I would put out and talk about.
No, I'm glad you're saying that, because every one of these episodes we've done so far, we found some way to acknowledge that we do this and there are people there. We're not those actors that are precious about it and pretend that we're not being watched. And so, in a very real sense, the audience is they are collaborating with you. Their energy is there. You do feel it. You hear it. You don't turn and wink at them and go, "Oh, I'm doing great up here, right?" Like, you don't court to them. And depending on the play, you don't directly acknowledge them. Sometimes in the play you do. But let's assume it's a fourth wall realism. But you are receiving that energy. And it is different every night. That group of people, that number of people out there, they kind of merge as one entity of energy that you receive and then that you give back. So you absolutely are there. You're only there because they're there. Like, if they didn't show up, what are you doing? Yeah. Walking around on a stage talking to each other, right? The only reason you're there is because they're there. So they absolutely are collaborative that way. And it's important to them, by the way. This is the night that they came out. God damn it. Have you ever experienced this when you go to see someone in a play and they come out afterward and they're like, bad night tonight. You saw a bad performance. You go, I was here and I didn't think that was a bad performance. And they're like, well, you should have been here last Thursday. That was our best one yet. You know, like, what? Because, first of all, you're telling me that I didn't have the experience I had was somehow, I don't know what the fuck, I thought it was good. And secondly, you're telling me that you have a version of it that's better than another version of it. And then you're being a terrible collaborator with me by telling me that I experienced shit up there, right? Where I was like, but I was in that audience and we were with you.
I think that goes back to circle of attention too, because as a good collaborator on a film set or in the audience, your circle of attention can't just be your own bubble around yourself. You have to bring in the camera and live, like the audience and kind of what as the 1-1 project, inviting audiences into it, and that like you have to be aware, but also not aware, in a sense that you can still, you and your acting partner have like a one type of bubble, and the audience has a different type of bubble, but they're all within each other.
That's right. That's right. And, we're referencing the 1-1 project. I know that's a little bit inside baseball, but it works also for a conventional play, that there's a bubble inside of a bubble. Mm-hmm. And I think someday we should do an episode and invite people in where we don't do anything but name all of the paradox of theater. Like you just said, you have to be aware but not aware. And then we're like, you have to have a thin skin, but a very, very thick skin. You go, every time you say something, the opposite. We should have an episode where we name those things and why they are valid, and why actors have to embrace them. This is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll wrap up, unless anybody else has any. Does anybody have anything else? No. First of all, thank you all for coming. How cool was it that we had
It was great.
people here? I usually have to pretend that people are here.
Right. Well,
In order to feel liked, I pretend that people like me.
right. Well, and it's nice because you probably feel like people are listening to you.
Yes, I have to
Which,
pretend.
when it's just us, it's all in one ear and out the other.
Right. When it's just me and you, no one's listening to me.
No, absolutely not.
Will listens to me, right, Will?
Sometimes.
This is the last thing I'm going to say about all of this. I've told some of you this story before. I was driving in my car on a street, so I'm only going like 25, and there's a bird in front of me, 20 feet ahead or whatever. And when you get close to a bird, they fly away. So I'm driving toward it, I'm getting closer, and I'm like, oh, soon it'll fly away, right? I get closer and closer. I'm like right on top of the thing, and he starts walking away, just like walking. I'm looking at him. Then finally I get so close, I swear to you, he goes like this. Like, oh, God, now I got to fly. And I swear to God, I put the window down to a bird. I'm like, you asshole. You can fly, and you're bitching about it. Like, the rest of us would love to have the gift of flight. You can fly, but what a pain in the ass that I made you. Oh, now I got to fly. And then I said to the bird, fuck you. And then people on the street said, "Are you yelling at a bird?" And then I said, "It's none of your fucking business." No, I didn't say that part. But don't be that bird is my point. You guys have this talent, this extraordinary talent that other people don't have, but you're like, well, I'm not gonna commit fully to it, or I'm not gonna do it when it needs to be done. Well, then you might as well be a bird that without wings, because that bird could fly. And it wasn't until the last second that he was like, all right, I guess I have to rely on my super gift that no one else has, flight, right? So it's very important for all of you. You got to embrace the fact that you're the one that can do this. So don't give us only a little bit of it. Don't start walking when you can fly.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Meisner Podcast.